This is the first time I've ever attempted to do this type of presentation in such a consolidated fashion, okay? This is normally a day or 2 days of information, so buckle up is the best way I can say it, okay? The intention is to have a lot of value around the business concepts that need to be implemented from top to bottom, left to right, okay? So I wasn't gonna do it, but he's a good friend of mine, Martin Pettigrew, wrote the book, The Roofing Machine, right? Who knows Martin Pettigrew? Okay, well there's this concept that's been floated around recently called machine, right? This idea of creating a machine. The idea of it is pretty simple. You master your people and your processes and you create a pretty predictable business, okay? So great news is you're likely closer to this reality than you believe. Has anybody decided to create the machine inside their business where they don't have to even be at their business and it still generates profits? If you don't raise your hand, you're lying. But it requires purposeful intention, grit, and consistency to a proven system. And that's what we're trying to present to you today, something that has been proven. So today, I always say this in my on-sites, for those of you that have been, I think there's a good bit of folks in the room that have been in some of those 1-day, 2-day events with me, okay? I always say that there's this concept of this 50-50 knowledge and implementation, right? That's 100% of the code, right? 50% knowledge, 50% implementation. Today, we're gonna cover the knowledge. But what I can't tell you is if you're going to implement. So that's why what I'll tell you today is as you're writing things down and you're getting into your notes a good bit, hopefully, okay, that you will take away at least a handful of things that you will implement, right? If you try to implement everything, you won't ever implement, okay? But it's important to implement. Why? It's worthless if you don't. Knowledge without implementation is worthless. So, in the spirit of creating this machine, again, we're going to talk about a system today. A system that will allow you to establish a clear strategic plan for your business. The idea that we're going to follow through with today is the fundamentals and vision just because of the time that we have. But as I set this up, as I talk about Deshaun and some of these other folks that are going to talk today, they're going to talk about the pillars, right? But I'm going to talk to you about the fundamentals and the vision you have to have inside your business. Because if you don't, you have nothing to set those pillars on. Does that make sense? Okay. Leadership and operations have to be inside your company in order to have success. We talked a lot about leadership yesterday. I'll share my 2 cents at the end for you because I'm not here to do a keynote on leadership, but if you don't have leadership and you don't have this idea of having an operational mindset, doesn't matter how good your business is, you got to have all of it. Would we agree to all this? Okay. Sorry, I missed that last point. After you understand the concept, we must then execute with the highest level of efficacy. That's really the key difference, right? Is execution. Execution with efficacy to the plan. How many of us have ideals of what we want our company to look like? What do we want our life to look like? Right? You have an ideal and there's this gap, right, to your reality. And there's a great book by Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. And if you haven't read it, you should write that down, if anything, today. Read that book, The Gap and the Gain. It's a very difficult book to execute and implement in your own life, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Because you're constantly living in that gap. How can I get better? How can I improve my business? How can I, have a better home life? How can I make more money, et cetera, okay? But it's a great book. And here's what I'll boil down this solution, because there's a big question mark here, right? There's a big question mark of how do we get from the ideal to the reality of what we want to achieve. To me, this is to create predictable outcomes by using a system, okay? So I'm going to use the example of fitness because that's usually the easiest one to make a correlation to. If you have a plan and a system in place and you stick to that plan, you deliver with high efficacy, I know there's some folks in here that are gym rats, what's the result? It works, right? But if I go in there and I don't have a plan and I just, throw some dumbbells around and just hope for the best, usually it doesn't happen quite as well, right? When you don't have that plan and create that predictable outcome, which is what we're after. So I want to kind of bring this down, and this is where things are going to start getting crazy, okay? I'm going to give you a little bit of confidence to know that at the end of this, I'm going to give you the opportunity to scan a QR code, and I'll give you my entire presentation, okay? That doesn't mean you don't need to be writing stuff down, because as you write things down, it's going to stick better, and then I'll do the same thing this afternoon, but I want to make sure that you guys buckle in the seatbelt, and let's get ready to rock, okay? So, every business has a vision, values, and brand. Every one of them. Who disagrees with me? Anybody? Okay. Joe Roofing, no offense if your roofing company's called Joe Roofing, okay? But Joe Roofing, or the guy that's, handyman services that don't even have a logo, okay? He's got a brand. What's his brand? It's him, and he doesn't have really any brand, so that's still a brand, right? He's chucking a truck. We heard that term more than once, right? Okay. What about vision? What's the vision of the chucking a truck? Paycheck to paycheck. Try to make it happen. Just, work for a 15% GP and undercut everybody, and I don't care because I'm going to, whatever his goals are, whatever his or her goals are, right? It's the vision. What are the values? Money. TGI Friday. Yeah, maybe working for the weekend, right? Okay. So I think I've got everybody on board now that every company, whether you're $100 million or $100,000, has vision, values, and brand, right? The end goal to me, and I'm not speaking for everybody here, but I can, after working with a little over 100 roofing companies and being inside the doors, it usually boils around these three things. They want profits, they want to have a great culture, and they want success. Does anybody want to add to anything else that you desire as an outcome? Freedom? I know. And that, we talked about that. Creating freedom for yourself, right? But holistically as an organization, profit, great culture, and establishing success. And what does success look like? I'm obviously abbreviating that. Impact. We talked about impact over influence last night, right? We talked about being able to raise people up with us with great leadership, right? So I want to break down the business and make this very vertical specific to our industry. But in business, it's the same type of concept, okay? And don't get your phones out just yet because you're about to see this thing layer up, so, okay? But I want to first start with the 4 buckets, right? Marketing, sales, production, and finance. The overarching glue to everything, right? Leadership and operations. And what I want to talk about a little bit today is the process element inside of marketing, sales, production, finance. That's what these hash marks represent, okay? And I'm just creating an idea. Hopefully I try to take pride in making things very layman's terms, okay? So this is my way of trying to make this very layman's terms for you, okay? But each of these has a predictable outcome or an outcome that we would like to achieve. And those of you that have been involved with me on those on-sites, you've already seen this once, but I want to make sure I reiterate so we're all on the same page before we dive in deep, okay? So I know I already spoiled it, but what is the purpose that marketing serves to our business? What is the purpose of it? To generate a lead, right? What's the purpose of sales? Closing, sales. That is the purpose of sales, is to close, okay? What's the purpose of production? Huh? To build it. Produce. In my opinion, it's to fulfill on what we just closed, right? On what we originated, what originated as a lead, and what we went on to close, and now we have the job of fulfillment, right? What's the finance purpose? Cash flow. Collect, get paid, right? Okay? A lot of people have a real tough time with that one. I want to talk a little bit about this as well, this idea of the pass-offs. Okay, inside of each of those, this is the reason why I'm drawing it out this way, and it's going to all come full circle in about 2 seconds here, is that between marketing and sales, sales and production and finance, there's what we call pass-offs or handoffs, right? Who knows the number one pass-off issue inside of a company? Sales to production, absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next example here, but you've got to master these pass-offs. The business breaks down in those pass-offs, especially as you grow. When it's not just you, if you're a solopreneur, which I'm going to talk about you here in about a second, okay? If you want to grow and scale a company, you can have the best sales team and the best production team that doesn't communicate and doesn't have a process inside that pass-off period, and your business will crumble. If you build 2 roofs a day or 2 roofs a week, let's say, okay, what would happen to your business when you built 20 roofs a week? It would probably crumble. It would probably break, right? Even if you had the sales. That sounds like a beautiful image for some of us, but it's also a nightmare if you do not have the system set up. And some of you that are larger companies can probably attest to that, okay? What am I talking about here? That's the customer journey, right? So if I can master the outcomes, the purpose, the processes that need to happen in order for me to achieve these outcomes, it makes things a lot more clear. My whole purpose of today is to have complete clarity with you all. So if I don't have clarity with you by the time this is over, then you come speak to me, because this is crucial and it's important that you understand this, okay? If you're a solopreneur, sorry, the thing's not working. Would you agree with that statement right there? Yes. Mr. Sheely was pretty vocal there. 90% of your time or more is going to be occupied in sales and production, right? I always used to say, and I still say it, that there's this idea of the stool. You got 4 legs in this scenario, marketing, sales, production, and finance, right? If you have no legs, you have no stool. So you're just running around. There's no place to sit, right? If you got 1 peg in the stool, you're not doing all that great, but at least you got 1 peg there, right? Then you get the other peg in place. Now you got a little bit more stability, right? Obviously, you know where I'm going with that. By the time you get to that 4 pegs in the stool, you got something to sit on. It's nice, it's sturdy, it has great foundation, right? I'm not working inside your business today. I'm working on the foundation, because what's missing in that stool analogy is the foundation that you need to have in order to effectively get sales, the peg, and production, the peg. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to work in those fundamentals. But 90% or more, without question, is occupied inside of those 2 areas when you're a solopreneur. And if you disagree with me, please raise your hand. Cool. So there's this pass-off breakdown, right? And I'm just bringing this into a little bit more microscopic view, okay? It's probably hard to read those words, but I'll read them out to you. Inside sales, you got prep, inspection, adjustment, close. Again, just examples. This isn't your process. This is just a process example, right? Production, we got approve, permit, scheduling and ordering, work in progress, WIP, right? Okay. So there's always this mesh point. And I just want to talk about this for a second, because if you're sitting there going, man, you know, my production to my sales to my production isn't that great. How do I improve it? Okay, the idea of this is we create enough process where sales understands what production needs, and production understands enough of what sales goes and sells, essentially, right? So this idea of what I'm creating here, I don't think I have a pointer, but in those 2 areas right there, is it's never, all right, just pass it over and good luck, right? We got to make sure we have a process. And that process is what I'm talking about inside that pass-off period, okay? So I encourage you, as we talk more about processes this afternoon, to be thinking about that customer journey I just explained to you, okay? Because that is, if you can master from the inception of that customer, that obviously is exposed to your marketing channels and your branding and all the things we talk about, the vision, values, and brand, everything starts there, and you can master that all the way to the end of getting paid and achieving profit, which I'm going to talk about financials this afternoon, you will absolutely win the game. You cannot lose. Okay? So this is what I mentioned earlier, right? Most hiccups occur in these pass-offs. Not that processes inside of the actual department aren't important, because they are, but you got to think about this too as you go about your day-to-day. So how do you go about process building? And again, I'm just scratching the surface level of it, and then we're gonna get into more stuff this afternoon. If you don't have a process, start here. I just gave you a cheat code. Think about your business in this way. Begin to build processes by starting with 5 to 10 critical core processes inside your business, okay? And this will, again, be, 5 to 10 critical steps inside of each department inside your company, okay? So how many people, be honest, no shame. This is open, honest, confidential space, okay? How many people don't even have a process written out in their company right now? Be honest. Thank you for being honest. Okay, start here. And for those of you that didn't raise your hand and you were shameful to do so, it's okay, because I want to make sure my business looks good too, but do this. And no one can master it. Okay? Because guess what? SOPs are continuing to be refined. So, welcome to business. You'll find that over time you're going to continue to curate this information, right? And continue to get better and better and better. The best businesses, the best businesses, not the highest revenue that blow up to 40 million and then you hear about the storm not hitting and then they just crumble, okay? I'm talking about the real businesses. Those businesses are great at continuing to refining their processes and getting better. And then again, on the other flip side of that, having great people, which we talked a little bit about yesterday in that leadership development piece, right? So I want to use this example. My man over here, Mr. Jose, and his boy Hugo, they built this people process. We're working together. And I'm not taking claim for this. They built this. But when you give an example of what just a basic idea, right, of creating that high level 5 to 10 steps, okay? The people process, and they were gracious enough to share this, so appreciate you guys. I just wanted to give you an example. They just started building out their processes, so, and kudos to them, they're freaking crushing it. The search, interviewing, hiring, orientation, quarterly conversations, annual reviews, and termination, right? That's their people process. That's their high level people process. Don't jack theirs. Build it for yourself. The point is that this is how you have to start creating your processes. You can see the few bullet points, right? And these high-level ideas. You're never gonna build the perfect SOP. And quite frankly, I hate 100-page SOPs because nobody reads them. The best thing to do is to incorporate it as part of your training and your onboarding and your entire process inside your business so that it actually gets done. And there's other tools out there like Trainual and other things that I use that actually can gamify the situation a bit too, okay? So first, circling back, I want to talk about, again, so now we're going to transition. We just talked about high-level process building. I just want to kind of prime you for the day. Now we're going to talk about the fundamentals and vision, the foundation and vision, okay? Now we're shifting gears here. So first, who are we? What do you and your company stand for? I used to run retreats. I ran a lot, quite frankly, but we used to talk about this at the very beginning. And we'd say, what do you stand for? It's a pretty simple question. I know everybody talks about their why, which I'll also argue what you want is sometimes more important than even your why, because you have to be clear on what you want to create, what do you want to do for other people, right? But this idea is, quite frankly, just what do you stand for? Who are you? What's meaningful to you? What are your values, right? So some of you have probably already seen this type of stuff before, but I really want you to implement this because it creates a lot of clarity for your team. It creates a lot of clarity for your marketing especially, okay? So what's your why statement? I like mission statements. I like all the other statements, okay? But, the vision statements, etc. But a purpose statement. Why? Why do we exist? You have to be different. You've heard that before. And a better customer experience is not a difference, okay? I understand you can have your own proprietary customer experience, but everybody has best customer service. Everybody has the best customer experience. So why? Why do you exist? Next is core values. 3 to 5 defined core values is my recommendation. You can certainly have 100, but good luck on them being really something that embodies your business, okay? Is so crucial, that second point, or the third point as well, okay? The guiding tool to your business. The reason that you hire people or fire people should be based on core values. When I talked about mergers and acquisitions yesterday with Patrick on podcast, I said one of the biggest things, well, two biggest things. One is technology integration and being able to integrate two companies' tools once they go through a merger. It's quite challenging, okay? Because they obviously processes merge and that becomes a thing. But the number one thing that's most important is that core values align, right? If your core values don't align, it'll be built on freaking sand, period. Thank you for whoever said yes. That is so crucial that it is a guiding compass to your business, okay? The other three things I want to present to you here. Company slogan. I know it's a little corny, but it makes a difference. If you don't have a company slogan, find a company slogan. There's a company, I think, Dickinson Roofing I've worked with. They're not here, but they said theirs was all about the community. They're a small town roofer, and they were like, one of the guys just said, it's just bigger than roofing. I was like, that's it, bigger than roofing, right? Doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to be over the top. Then I know that there's some people that have tried to trademark things out there, whatever. I think Jamie Garrison said every shingle time and stuff like that. Like, it's cool, but like it's what matters to your business, right? Okay. Ideal client. Be clear with the geographic, demographic, and psychographic of your avatar. What's your ideal client? It's okay to know that. It's okay to clarify what that is to your business. Because if you don't know what that is, how does your marketing know who to target, who to go after, who to try to engage with, okay? If we're working with geriatrics, you might want to go into retirement communities. If you prefer not to work with that and you want to work with high-end residential, you probably need to be going into country clubs, right? Things like that. Understanding your appropriate client, your ideal client, is huge. It's critical. Differentiators, niches, kind of all ties into that ideal client as well, but I always talk about riches and the niches. There's so many guys that love to do volume, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But more money, more problems, more projects, more problems, right? So for me, I like to really focus on what are the areas that I want to be niching in. If you're a brand new business, you're going to have to take customers because you need the business. But as you grow and you continue to mature, and you continue with your marketing and your branding and all the things that Tim Brown and Devin and other folks to talk about that great brand and creating that brand and market awareness and all that sort of stuff, you need to be very clear on where you want to be operating inside your company, okay? And I'm sometimes as specific about the type of application inside a commercial, but a lot of times like, hey, I just want to be on that like smaller end, that 100 to 200 squares, because everybody's chewing for the top and everybody's chewing for the bottom, but there's a lot of people that aren't executing in the middle, okay? So things like that, some different ideas, okay? Specialty applications, etc. So what's the vision? Right? So we talked about who are you? Next is, what's your vision? Where are we going? If we don't know where we're going, then we're wandering aimlessly, right? So I'm going to share this idea with you, okay, that is, I believe that in a 1-3 year and the long term, the end game for you, okay, you need to understand at minimum these components of your business. What do you want, right? This comes back to what do you want? What revenue, what gross profit percentage, what net profit percentage, or what net profit dollar, excuse me. The big, hairy, audacious goal, right? I'm sure plenty of you have read the books and heard that terminology before. What does your business look like? I've done plenty of those on-sites, and I'll tell you right now, the more clear we get, the more things manifest. How many offices, how many locations, how many trucks, how many people, how many anything, right? We need to create that vision. People love that too. You might have that in your head, but we talked about that yesterday in that PSI piece with Ken. How many of us don't communicate well? How many of us don't get that out? If you put this front and center of everybody in front of your company, there's no way that they don't know. And if they do know and they don't act in compliance, guess what you have? A foot to stand on to go, you're not a part of you're not our people, right? Which is okay. You can release them to go engage in other opportunities, and that's totally fine. But they got to know what you're about and what your business is about, okay? So, applying this in these 3 areas, I encourage people to start with the big vision. What's the end game? Is it an exit? Is it a generational piece? We're going to talk a little bit about that later on this afternoon. Is it, I want to, live on a beach and have it running and I'll just make a cool milli a year, whatever, cool, like whatever it is, that's your vision, right? Okay? But one of the things I want to bring up here too, because I know we always get hyped up around, oh yeah, my business, it needs to be 50 million, whatever. You hear all these people, okay? Let me tell you right now, and I'm not going to go into this because I am literally giving you the most consolidated version of this, so I'm going to try to keep my tangents at minimum, okay? That every business has a sweet spot. And find your sweet spot. When you get to your sweet spot, when you get to that position of viability in your business where money is good and people are paid and taxes are paid and all the things, we're not running around and acting a fool with trying to collect money last minute, okay? And I know sometimes things are circumstantial based on jobs you take, but like by and large, you're in a viability phase, okay? And you got some money in the bank, which we'll again talk about this afternoon. There's a big decision that's made, which is to scale. We throw around this terminology of scaling a lot. Scaling is a part of the phases of business. Okay? We have startup, that perseverance phase. You get to viability, there's a decision to be made to go to scale. So if you're rocking $8 million and you're like, man, life's good. People are happy. Not saying that we can't make greater impact, but maybe your greater impact is doing things with your business outside of the walls of your business, okay? So I just want to hit on that first, that not every business is intended to be a $100 million company, and that's okay. Like, I want to take the air out of the room and tell you, it's okay. Build your business for what is, again, aligned with the vision and aligned with the why of your company and the reason it exists, okay? And then again, applied through the 3-year checkpoint in the 1 year, okay? And there is nothing wrong with scaling, by the way. But I will tell you one thing just to add to that scaling phase is when you start business over again. Because when you get aggressive with that, it goes back to being an unstable business, right? So when you do that, be very clear with what you want. Again, finally, master the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of business? This is what we're talking about today. We talked about the why, we talked about the vision, now we're going to talk about the fundamentals. And this is going to be the breakdown of our entire rest of our segment, okay? So if you want to take a picture, great. Again, I'm going to share the deck with you, but team chemistry alignment is first and foremost. Why do you think we started with it yesterday with Ken? Got to have good team chemistry. Got to have that stuff aligned. If you don't, man, people are going to be a problem. And you're probably going to be a problem to your people, as hard as that is to say sometimes first to ourselves, okay? We don't know our own tendencies. We don't know our own chemistry, the culture, the things we create. It's toxic. Anything but good culture to me is not good culture. Doesn't matter. Okay? So team chemistry alignment. Number 2, roles and responsibilities. Being detailed and defined. Can't tell you how many people come to me and they're like, well, we just don't know what anybody's doing. We don't know, like, where, everybody's just doing everything, whatever. Okay, well, again, that's why it's point number 2. Got to have good culture, got to have the right people. Now we got the right people, let's get them in the right places. Does this make sense? There's sequentialness, there's a process here that we're going through, okay? Next is quarterly prioritization. Less is more. It always is. So if you're like sitting there going, man, I want to do everything under the sun this quarter, I would challenge you with being more clear about what is most important, which I'll give you an exercise here in a minute, okay? Clear, strategic, and intentional. Got to be intentional. We only have 4 quarters. So be intentional with how you prioritize things inside those 90-day windows. All right, so let's talk about team chemistry for 1 second. I just love this little quote here. Best teams have the best chemistry. They communicate effectively with one another. They sacrifice personal glory for the common goal. That is the truth. People are my purpose. People should be your purpose, in my opinion. That's what great leadership is about. It's about your people. How can you raise them? How can you create great chemistry amongst them, et cetera, okay? So we talked about that yesterday, but it really is a selflessness to the common goal. If other folks in your organization are constantly about the dollar, they're probably not going to be a good fit long term. They will eventually phase out of your company. And I hate to say that because I like money too, but the reality of the situation is people have to understand the goal, what we are going to achieve. And that starts with what? The vision, right? The why. All the stuff we just talked about a minute ago. So during your recruiting, the only thing I wanted to say in this, adding to this, okay, much like what I was showing you earlier around that people process, okay, during the recruiting and interviewing process, I highly encourage you to use those personality tools. Okay, and I recommend using Ken, and obviously I think he shared this yesterday, maybe he didn't, but he's trying to move a little more digital, so maybe that helps out with that as well. But if anything, there's tons of personality assessments. I'm telling you, use Ken's as by default, because it's the best, but use something. Use something that gets you an understanding of who you're interviewing and who you're trying to hire, okay? Yeah, it will make you better understand all those things that you see there in the bottom right. The natural tendencies, strengths and weaknesses. Are they going to be a good fit for your culture, okay? So that's the only thing I want to hit on there, but it's vitally important. There are quite a few responsibilities that have to happen inside a roofing organization. Wouldn't you agree? I'll stay on the slide for just 2 seconds, but I mean, just for those of you, especially up at the front, I mean, that's a lot of stuff, isn't it? How much does a solopreneur do? Pretty much all of it, but they won't get to all of it, right? They're going to take on again, those core pieces of their business that keeps it going. So another gold nugget there to think about is what are the things that you as a solopreneur, if you're still in that phase, doing on a day-to-day basis. Those would probably be a great place to start with your processes, the most important processes, okay? But the idea of an organizational responsibility example like this is there's a lot of responsibilities that have to be done on a day-to-day basis, especially when you actually get into big revenue. Because again, more money, more problems, more projects, more problems, okay? You start getting into that $5 to $7 million range, shit can get out of hand real quick. Who can agree with me on that that's been there? Yep. So this is where we take into consideration, this is where, again, one more time, let's buckle up the seatbelt because we're about to go on a ride. This is a lot of information here, okay? Because normally I facilitate this over a few hours. But I want to kind of explain this to you. I want to give you the tools to be able to implement this inside your company, okay? So starting with the team we have, right? 1, do we have an alignment with team chemistry and core values, okay? If the answer is yes, move to question 2. If no, then I would just challenge you with an exercise. Write your core values out. Plug your people in, okay? If they don't have alignment to your core values, then that's probably a great place to start, right? If you look at those core values and the person you're looking at doesn't reflect, you got 5 core values and they only reflect 1 of those, probably a good place to start. Okay? But let's consider in this scenario that they do, because I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. If the answer is yes from above, then we reference the previous ORE list, which is that organizational responsibilities examples list, okay? And execute what I call the 4-quadrant exercise. Some of you probably seen some quadrant exercise similar, okay? But this is something I've worked hard to kind of really think of. How do we implement this before we talking about roles and responsibilities? Because I think it's important to, with the people that you have, I think where a lot of other operating systems mess up is they create the ideal role. The reality situation is, especially in our industry, we're not running an 80, 90% gross profit machine, okay? We're running a lot of times 30s or 40s or even sometimes less, okay? We got to use the people, as long as they're good people, as long as they align to the core values, good people, right? and find out where they are best suited inside our company, rather than creating the role and just saying, well, you look like you'd fit that role. I like to take a more scientific approach. So, the 4 areas: fulfillment, contentment, sacrifice, and misery. Fulfillment, the responsibilities you could do in perpetuity and believe you are most capable inside your organization. On the flip side of that, I want to give them the misery, the responsibilities you wish you never had and do not believe to be the most capable inside the org. How many of us right now are doing things that we do not enjoy doing inside our business? Be honest. A good bit of people. Well, the reason I implemented this and created this was because it's fundamental, in my opinion, to understand what you love, what you hate. And that's okay to hate things inside the world of business, okay? But sacrificing and contentment being kind of that middle ground. Sacrifice the responsibilities you wish you never had and you still believe to be somewhat capable inside the org, okay? So the idea of sacrifice and separating that from misery is you're not good at it and you're doing it anyway. Why would you do something you're not good at and try to enjoy it or whatever, okay? That's your misery. Sacrifice is, hey, I'm pretty good at it, but I don't enjoy it. And that's important to understand, okay? Contentment being the last piece up in the top right. The responsibilities you're okay with doing, I just say okay, because it's content. I'm okay with it, okay? And you believe to be capable, but these aren't your passion. And it's important to know what your passion and your true fulfillment is. And everybody else, not just you. That's the biggest thing. It's the biggest implementing piece here is it's not just about you, it's about doing this with everybody. It's about making sure that first you start with yourself. If you have a leadership team or something like that, yes, but you need to be understanding this within your entire organization. If you got someone in production that dreads production, they'd be better at supplementing, it would be important to understand that, right? Or whatever, okay, whatever the circumstances are. So, this is how you go about executing the exercise. Number 1, write what you love. Embody the idea of fulfillment. What would you really enjoy doing every single day inside your business? So I like to start there. Because a lot of times people, it's the polarizing effect, which you're about to see, but a lot of people like to start with that. What gets me up in the morning? What do I love about this, right? It's got to be bigger than money. If it's not bigger than money, then you're not going to be in business very long, okay? But what do you love to do? Number 2, what do you hate? So do what you love first, then go right to what do you hate. Embody that idea of misery. Just put yourself in that aura of the worst day of your life inside your roofing business and write all those things down. Okay? Next, sacrifice. Find those things that are things you don't enjoy, and sometimes people will find that they put them in the hate column and they're like, well, I'm good at them though, right? I mean, I can still do them, but I don't like them, okay? Maybe sometimes you move it over, but do sacrifice next, okay? And then the next being contentment. Obviously, the final one's contentment. There's a reason for this. You see the arrow up there, okay? I want you to do it this way because it's actually a part of, I know Keith blew our minds yesterday. I'm definitely not that intellectual around neuroscience or any of those things, but it's the way your brain operates. We think polarizing. Okay? So do it this way with your team and it'll help get more clarity of things. But the contentment idea is all of the things that you are okay with, but it's not something you are passionate about. So what I challenge people when they're done with it is drag things out of fulfillment. Fulfillment needs to be the best, most incredible experience in the day-to-day of your own life inside your business. And if it is not that, then it needs to go elsewhere. Make sense? And again, we're referencing this list. I know I went ahead, but we're coming to this list. So what I tell people is have this list up because it's already something I've created, okay? And literally start plugging it in. You love doing lead generation. If so, if you're the lead guy, put it in fulfillment. I know plenty of people are like, man, I hate marketing. Great, put all that stuff in your hate. We'll know that that's off the radar for you. All right, going on to step 2. This is where, again, I hope people are writing things down just to help digest a little bit. But once everyone in your organization, at minimum, the key members of your organization, has executed that exercise, now it's time to collect the information, identify personnel gaps, and create a growth pattern projection. Who has a growth pattern projection for their business right now? Where they're growing, who they're bringing on? Few, like people I've pretty much worked with, which I appreciate y'all. I'm just kidding. No, you guys are ballers. All right, so for those of you that don't, again, boils down to that vision. You're the leader of your organization. If you don't know who's coming on next, where the business is going next, who the hell's going to know? You have to know. So have your team members cross out or strike through the responsibilities from the 4-quadrant exercise they are not actively responsible for. Okay, I'm going to show the example here. Hopefully you can see it, okay? Just pulled an example. The second thing we want to do after we do the crossing out is we want to organize all those responsibilities into a per person list, right? So once we get it from the 4 quadrants, we need to put it into a per person list. And it's all going to make sense in 2 seconds if you're not with me, okay? But when you do that, you need to color scale. Going back to this, okay? What do you think the darker of the list represents when we talk about this 4 quadrant? What do you think? You don't like it. They're in your bottom 2, right? But the goal would be to the top 2 to start, right? With the ultimate goal being at your fulfillment. Okay, so the bottom should be color-coded as such if I'm sitting there consolidating a list. I don't care how you consolidate, you do it inside of Excel or do whatever you want, but that's the concept here, right? We need to notate the things that are not a part of that fulfillment or contentment, right? So once you cross it out and you do that, taking it on to the next piece of this, okay, it's time to shuffle the deck and build more cohesiveness inside your business. When I talk about shuffling the deck, we have to make sense of the roles. Not many corporatized companies, and I'm not saying I agree with corporate culture because I think it's BS and that's ultimately why I left, but one thing that corporate does get right is, most of the time, is they got people doing the set of responsibilities that are cohesive to what a role should be, right? So you should create that inside your business. So I'll use this example here. We got Andy that's got more of this like sales, management leadership. And oh, by the way, okay, when we create these roles, and I'm just getting ahead of myself so that way I don't forget whenever we get done with this exercise, this is also a constant changing process, right? Because it's not going to be set in stone. It's a process that you follow and you continue to curate the personnel, right? The people. We talked about curating process and continuing to build process. We're doing the same thing with people. People process, right? Okay? So I just want to say that real quick and interject there because there's things that certainly change as things go on, okay? But Andy, Jake, Leah, Brett, Leslie in this scenario, okay? We got pretty clear with what Randy's doing, or with us, sorry, not Randy, Andy is doing inside of more of this high-level sales management, ownership type seat. Him and Jake are both owners, so Jake carries some of those responsibilities too. But like Andy's focused on growth, focused on business development, those types of things. Jake is focused on the vision, the culture, those types of things, okay? It's important to be that detailed. I know it sounds silly to some probably, but it's so crucial, especially the people that you think already know how owners or leadership team operates inside your company when they have not the first clue of who to go for something. And that's the first flaw I find with any business is I go in and they go, oh no, my team knows, what I do, whatever. And then, we get more embedded and invest in their business. And then we find out that they have no idea what the true roles and responsibilities of themselves is, the employee, and also who to call when we have a certain situation arise, right? So how many of you have the ever ringing phone right now? Be honest. Good amount of people. That's a problem that you started, okay? Because you didn't tell people, no, I don't answer that question. That's not part of my responsibility. That goes to Bob or Sally or whatever, okay? You have to be very intentional with making sure that your channels stay the channels they should be, okay? Next, identify the responsibilities that don't fall into an existing role and then group them by skill set to create new roles and establish a growth pattern projection. When it makes sense that we use the talent that aligns with our core values, the people that are inside our business that bleed New Era and bleed built right and bleed clear cut, okay? Those people are great people. They just need direction. They're not you. Understand that. They are not wired like you. Because if they were, they would be in this room too. So understand that 95, this is my counter-science for you for the day, 95% or more of people existing in our society just want to know what they need to do and go home. You might want to go to $100 million and have a flamboyant lifestyle, or you might want to give to the poor, whatever your calling is, which is great. But a lot of those people, they should embody the culture and what your purpose is inside the business, but they are not you. So if you learn nothing else today, when you look at your employee next time and you're having to repeat something 3 or 4 times, and they're not as quick of a learner as you are because you're an entrepreneur and they're an employee, which I didn't bring in the slide today, but again, one little tangent, I always try to keep it a minimum. You've got your worker bees, your managers, your intrapreneurs, your entrepreneurs. Okay, and if you do not have enough intrapreneurs, then you're going to be doing all the entrepreneuring. Okay, but you got to have enough worker bees. The janitor to the CEO, I cannot tell you, they play just as vital part as one another. All right, finally, build out the organizational chart hierarchy. Lastly, ensure the organizational chart is in place with proper direct reporting and accountability channels. The number one thing that chaps my ass about this thing is that it is not about you, it is not about your ego. It is about creating clarity inside your organization. So leave the ego and the attitude at the door. If you have people inside your organization that aren't understanding of the importance of a hierarchy and understanding who reports to who, they're probably not going to work out for you at $100 million if that's what you're trying to do. Because you have to have this at $100 million. Unless you just get a $100 million check and you just decide to cash it and fly off somewhere. This is about providing clarity. Who and the what. Who's doing what. Have to know. And we have to know who reports to who. Okay? So the example, by the time you're done with all of it, you should have some sort of organizational chart in place that lets you know who's responsible for who and what do they do. And I promise you put this front and center of people, it certainly clears up the air of what people are supposed to be doing. All right, I'm going to start zooming a bit. First, start with identifying the challenges in each department. Let's revisit this idea. But now I'm going to break it down to you in a way where you look at it like this. And you look at some of those challenges that might exist. I've just made these out of the air, right? But marketing, sales, production, finance, and that ops piece, right? Hey, we don't know what our marketing channels are. We don't even know what we do in marketing, right? Well, that's probably a good place to start. That'd probably be something that you would want to address, okay? If you don't have 5 cemented marketing channels inside your business, then we probably need to work on that, okay? But maybe that's not the priority, right? Reviews, lead input, okay, those are examples of marketing. Look down at the production, QC, COCs. Who knows what a COC is? Certificate of completion. If you don't know what a COC is, you probably need to get a COC in your business, okay? Okay, creates a lot of leverage for you. Just a little pro tip there. Photos. Fleet management, change orders, right? These are just examples of challenges, things that aren't going well inside our business that we need to address, right? Okay, these are purely examples. They are certainly common ones, but they are purely examples. This is not your list. Next, compile the list of challenges. It's time to identify the 3 to 7 most important things. I had someone that came to me, oh man, it was probably a month ago now, but I went on an on-site and he came up to me and he had his whole notebook. He was just like I don't know if Alex is still in the room. I love Alex. He's my brother, but that boy, he's got notebooks after notebooks of ideas and all the things that he's got going on, right? So this guy comes to me, he goes, man, I got this and this and this. I mean, we're talking everything from like a rebrand idea to how could he buy another business to all these different things, right? And he came to me and he's like, I just don't really know what to focus on. And I was like, well, great. This is a common problem. How many people have the shiny object syndrome? I'm one of you, so don't be shameful. Okay? Right? He goes, it was impressive. Let me put it that way. It was impressive. I was like, man, your mind must be awake when you're asleep because you got a lot of ideas. Okay? And he just came to me and he's like, tell me what to do. And I was like, well, I have an exercise for you to probably make this thing really simple. So we went to the whiteboard, and this is how I execute it. This is how I recommend executing it with your team. And I started labeling, number 1, this. Number 2, this. Number 3, this. Number 4, this. So on and so forth. We had 85 things on that whiteboard by the time we were done, with ideas and problems and things and all this different stuff, right? And we were doing it the same way. We were doing it thinking about marketing, thinking about sales. And the reason I want you to think about it that way is because it makes things a little bit easier to look at on a microscopic level, right? To see it like going, what's the problem inside of my marketing? What's the problem in sales? Versus what's the problem that happens inside of our business? We probably have 3 or 4 things of those that pop out to us right away. But when we think about it departmentally, it helps us clear up the air, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, so by the time we got done, believe it or not, we got him down to 7 things. And those are the 7 things we're focusing on this quarter. And I said, and by the time he was done, he had such a weight off his shoulders because he felt like he was doing such a bad job as a leader, which is not your fault, by the way. I think some of it is you don't know what you don't know, but that's why you're here. So now you knowing this, now it would be your fault, okay? That he said, I just feel like I'm not guiding my team well. I just feel like I'm not giving them the clarity that they deserve, which was really cool, right? That he wanted that. That's one of the reasons he brought me in. So I said, well, let me tell you, you don't really need me to come in anymore after this. Come home and teach you the skill. And the skill is get clear on the 3 to 7 most important things. And for him, obviously getting the 3 would have been quite the challenge, but he got the 7, okay? So we're outlining those as targets once we outline what those are, okay? We execute this keep, kill, combine exercise. That's what I was referencing when I told him, we have these 80 things on the board. What's most important? It's pretty simple. Run this exercise. With your team, it is a very easy exercise to do, but you have to encourage your team and tell them to be vocal, okay? Keep, kill, or combine. What do you think that means? Keep it means we believe that that's one of the most important things we need to work on this quarter, right? Kill, it's not. It might be departmentally focused. It might not be something that's focused for this year or for this quarter. It might be more of a next quarter thing. And pro tip, if you want to first go through and put your short term, which is your like inside the 90 days or long term, I would encourage that too, especially if you have a long list. If you got 80 things, get clear on what needs to be focused on in this quarter and the things that are 60 days, not 60 days, 120 days or 200 days out, okay? Just leave those things there and come back to that short-term list. But the idea being, keep what you believe to be most important, kill what is not, and combine if there's any correlation. Make sense? Okay. And so you'll see the example up there of, we got down to, I think, like 7, that might have been a bad example for me, but in the process, right, like we have job nimbus refinement, improvements, and automations. This is an actual client, okay? But then we had one that was Slack and a communication tool. Not that a communication tool isn't important, but also like think about it this way, like Slack and setting up a communication tool is probably not going to take you a whole quarter, right? So that's another thing to consider is if it's not going to take you a full quarter, it's not something that's more of a quarterly focus, then eliminate it, come back to it. It's not a big deal. But there's a reason why we cross through them and we don't erase them. Because these are either going to become tasks that we implement and we take care of, or we're going to leave them on the pegboard of ideas, right? So kill. We do not believe this challenge, I already read all that stuff. So going down the list, high level departmental SOP, employee training and onboarding process, that stuff was super important to them. We're like, we got to get that stuff rolling. Because those are the things that they're in a position where they're probably doing $3 to $5 million, and they're like, man, we're at that place where money is coming in. We got to start building our processes to be effective, so we can start bringing people in at scale, right?
And now it's finally time to establish the targets.
He has ownership of 4 company targets. He's got a lot on his plate this quarter. He's got to make sure that and what I mean by owning is not that you're the only person working on it. Let me make sure that's clear. What this means that this is your responsibility to make sure it gets done, okay? And those are usually, not always, but usually items that need your most involvement, okay? Make sense? So, the company target for Brian here, got another one here, another one here, another one here. But his individual targets list, which is right here, right? He's got warranty and a COC created, onboarding a PA and supplementing, okay? Those are his others, those other ones that are in there, warranty and COC and onboarding PA. Those are his individual. They're not company, right? The companies are these. Contract language revisions and updates, sales SOP, production SOP, finance SOP, office manager SOP. Okay? They need a lot of standard operating procedure. This particular example. Okay? So, and you see over there on the right, we've got like some initials. Specified owner. That's because we need to have someone that's responsible for all of these company targets. Make sense? We're moving on. Key performance metrics. So first, we have to understand what are the most important metrics. How many people keep KPMs? Not KPIs, I'm not talking about individual sales stuff. I'm talking about the business's high-level key performance metrics. Who keeps track of those on a week-to-week basis? I know you do. You do? Okay. Okay. A lot of hands not raised. So absorb this and implement, because this is, and you're literally going to get the deck. So there's no reason, there's no more excuses to go, I don't really know what to track or whatever. This is it. Okay. So the 10 to 15 most important data metrics. You've probably heard of this idea before of a scorecard. Okay. Creating a scorecard to stack up of how well you're doing on a day-to-day basis and a week-to-week basis, extremely crucial to your business. It's extremely critical. Because we can identify things weekly, and then we don't get to the end of the quarter and go, why are we out of money? Why are we not hitting our GP? Why are we not whatever? Okay? So, start with a weekly. Like I said, those 10 to 15 things, they're extremely, extremely important. So for those of you that, I know I told everybody to scoot up, so I hope everybody is still compliant with that so you can read. I mean, these are some items as examples, okay, but these are some of mine. Because you have to understand the AR total, AP total. I'm going to get into another thing here in just a minute. It's going to probably blow your mind. Actually, that's this afternoon. I thought it was in this deck, but it's not. Okay, around how I can evaluate an estimated operating capital inside of a business. Because I understand this stuff, I can tell you a lot about your business. If you know this stuff, I can tell you a lot about your business in about 5 seconds. Okay? So if you know these metrics, you'll also know where your business stands in about 5 seconds. Then, once we master the weekly, we master the cadence, right? We're always checking. We're always making sure things are tracked, okay? Then we go to quarterly. And that's where things get a little bit more complex. And that's okay. Because we need to know more things on a quarterly breakdown basis, right? We're probably going to get into some of our gross profit specifics. We're probably going to get into EBITDA. We're probably going to get into some of those other things, okay? Some of you are probably looking at this going, holy shit, I can't even get my stuff together enough to know how much money's in the bank at times, like whatever, okay? But this is crucial. This is crucial, and it's not that far away. Remember what I said a minute ago. Your machine that is wanting to be created, it's not that far away. You just have to implement these things to start and build on them. But in this scenario, you can see the first page, and I got a second page. CC debt, other debts, projected net working capital, understanding my AR average days, understanding my marketing spend, what are good assessments, what are bad assessments, et cetera, okay? Understanding this will help you figure out what is most important to focus on inside your business. Annual. This is the big one, right? I love annual meetings. My 2-day annuals are so incredible because I get to reconcile the entire year, see where we did. Obviously, I say so incredible. It's even more incredible when you actually hit your goals, and that's fun, right? Okay? But just being able to get clarity. Like, where do we land? Where do we hit? Where are we going, right? And I'm not going to go into all that today because that's another 2-day deal, but this is just some of the stuff, right? Again, you're going to see some of the recurrings, but then you're going to see some of the other things. Lead quality ratio, build efficiency ratios. But there's additional things in here, right? It's basically, let's get those 10 to 15 and then let's get more granular as our business matures. Does that make sense? Because it's just like processes. If you start trying to implement this, you try to create the most beautiful SOP anybody's ever seen day one, you'll never do it. You have to start somewhere. And my biggest question I get with this, with anybody that I coach or work with on the 10 to 15, is they go, well, like, where do we start? I'm like, now. You have to start. And it's not going to be perfect for maybe a month, 2 months, a quarter. That's okay. Start. Because starting will equip you to being able to continue to build off of that. And it will get better, I promise you. It will get more, there will be better efficacy, there will be better data put in there as time goes, but you have to start. And if you never start, you never will. Finally, we need to build good habits. That's what I was just saying. Just start building good habits. It doesn't have to be, I'm sure that all the other speakers that are about to be up here today, it's not because you're going to be Deshaun tomorrow and, throwing up tons of revenue as a salesperson tomorrow, whatever, or sales management. It's not like you're going to implement everything today, but you've got to start implementing some of those things. Same with Tim, or same with Joe Hughes, or any people are going to be on marketing, okay, whatever. But you got to start somewhere. It's the same here. Just start. And it'll start looking like this, and then you go, man, I can actually start seeing some of the things that are happening inside my business. All right. Number 5, standing meetings. The first meeting you should master is a 90-minute, once a week meeting. If it's just you, if you look at this, you're like, well, I don't have a leadership team. Or it's just me and my business partner. Have a meeting with yourself. Have a meeting with your business partner. 90 minutes. Work on your business. You're working in your business 50, 60 hours a week or more at times. Work on your business for 1 hour. It makes world of difference. Be disciplined enough, and I'm going to talk about that in 2 seconds about the time management piece, but be disciplined enough to block your schedule at 90 minutes. It's not that much to ask. 90 minutes. Wins, announcements. 10 minutes I usually spend at the beginning of this just talking about what are the big updates, right? Did Sally Sue have her gutters fall off her roof because we put it in a rotten fascia or whatever, okay? What are the big things that need to get addressed this week? What are some of the big announcements of new personnel? We got, company event, whatever, okay? It's things that are worth bringing up first, okay? Data, what we just addressed. Looking at it. Where are we at? Where's the problem? Where does it exist? Hey, sales have been down the last few weeks. We've only sold, our goal is to sell 20 jobs a month. We've only hit 10 in the last 3 weeks. We're off course, right? We're off track. We need to address this. How do we address it? Maybe we do a blitz. Maybe we do something else, right? Okay, how do we address it? That's where you're going to work on your business rather than just aimlessly wandering. Targets, same type of concept, reviewing, okay? So as I start dropping these in, review, not talk about it. The 5 minutes is to review. Identify your business from a 30,000-foot view. Look at it. If there's a problem, then we'll talk about it in that challenge time. Make sense? So review. Task is the last one, right? Task is saying, hey, how do we do this week? Task should be 7 to 14 days of items. Don't overload your tasks. And I'll hit a little bit later on the critical 3, okay? Be very clear with what your weekly important tasks are. And then as you come back into looking, coming together as a team, all right, at minimum, what critical 3 did I have and did I get those done? Did I get those things done? Okay, so review your past week's progress, tasks, identify what needs to be reset with new completion dates. If there is an issue where you have not completed that task, you need to complete that task, we need to have accountability of when that's going to get done. I need to be able to sit there and say, Josh, when is that going to get done, dude? Because it's been going on for 2 weeks. Okay, and it needs to get done. And if it doesn't need to get done, then that needs to get taken off as task because it's not a part of his critical 3 at minimum, right? Okay, so review it. This is the time to work on your business. This is why I was saying 60 minutes, 1 hour. Work on your business. There's plenty of things to work on and not in, right? So take the time to work on this, and especially if you have at least a few people in the room. You're going to start working off of that list of the things that were not necessarily part of your quarterly, okay? Quarterly targets, rather. And some of those things that were not part of the individual targets. These are a lot of things that are just miscellaneous, right? These are a lot of just challenges, things that exist inside of the business that we need to work on, we need to get better at. And some of them will be things that are related to, i.e. milestones. That's why I didn't want to get into that. But things that are important to address as we try to achieve the quarterly target. Does that make sense? And we got to work on those things. If we never work on them for that hour a week, they will not get done. Or you'll at least never have a game plan of how to address it through task management through the week, right? Takeaways. So wrap up with the meeting with a recap of new tasks. Make sure that you're in agreement. This is kind of my opportunity with my team where I go, all right, anybody feel like they want to back out of their things they've committed to this week? Because if they haven't, then I expect you to get them done. Same with me. So recap the new tasks that we've delegated this week and then rate the meeting. You don't have to rate the meeting per se. You could just do a takeaway. What's your biggest takeaway? Hey, I need to get this done. I need to make sure that we focus on this particular. I have my focus, my eyes set on this particular project because it has to get done this week in order for us to continue to move forward. Whatever, right? Just a good closeout, a good recap, right? So implement that to start. There are other standing meetings that I will talk about, but and one thing I do want to mention is you do not want to meeting overkill your staff. I don't believe in having meetings just because they're scheduled. Outside of the one time a week that is, we need to have this meeting and make sure that we're working on our business, okay? I believe that sales meetings and production meetings and all these things I'm about to list here, okay, are necessary, but you need to figure out your cadence. Sometimes bi-weekly is okay, right? Sometimes monthly is okay. You might be running a business where it's just you and two other people. So you having even a sales meeting at all, maybe you make a part of that 90 minutes, a little bit of a sales talk or something like that, right? But the idea is that you need to make it good for you. Standing meetings are not to be there to fill up time. They're there to make sure that you set time so that when you sit there and you start, because if you don't use a block schedule, if it was up to me, you'd be doing that starting today. Okay, for those of you that just fly by the seat of your pants and never have a meeting, okay, if you don't ever have a meeting, then you're what's called a removed owner, and you need to go be on a beach somewhere while the rest of your business is being ran. Because if you don't have intercommunication with your people, and you're just texting people nonstop, it's not gonna work, right? How many people right now, be honest, don't have even a team chat set up for their business? I know there's people in here that don't. Okay, that's okay. Setting up team chats, making sure things are communicated well. That's great, but we need to make sure that we're having those standing meetings, okay? So this is an example, weekly, bi-weekly. Leadership, obviously for me, that's a weekly thing, but you might have a pass-off, handoff. When you start getting to higher revenue, I see this a lot of companies, so we start getting like to 10 and 15, and you're freaking building 10, 20 roofs a week. There's, unfortunately, there's some crazy customers out there, right? There's some things you need to be addressed and make sure that things are in tune, people are in tune with. So sometimes that's like a quick 30-minute pass-off. What are the jobs for this week? You have sales and production in the room for a quick 30 minutes or as long as it's necessary. Make sure they have everything ready to go and then send them off, right? And there's certainly things inside of great tools like Job Nimbus and other things where you can eliminate a lot of that. But just some of these ideas I'm just bringing to your attention, right? Cash flow meetings, alignment meetings, making sure that number one, number two, the partners, whatever, have an opportunity to connect, okay? And then monthlies. I'm a big pipeline cleanup. I got once a month pipeline cleanup. How many people's pipelines look like crap right now? They don't even know what they're looking at. They got 180 leads in lead status and they don't even, they were from a year ago, whatever, okay? Clean your freaking crap up and set time to do that. Inventory fleet meetings, marketing and content meetings, okay? That's the example of those. Finally, we need to implement other types of meetings. Again, don't want to be overkill. You as an individual should never really have more than like 2 a week. Unless you're maybe a CEO or someone that's at high level, but like as a just typical leadership team type thing, that individual and even yourself, truthfully, again, some exceptions, but you should really only be having 2, maybe 3 a week. So as I'm implementing these things, it's not because you're doing all of them as you grow, right? This is as you continue to develop your business, okay? These types of meetings are essential. They maintain cultural health, transparency amongst the entire organization. How many people do a quarterly leadership team meeting? Okay? How many people do an annual leadership team meeting? Okay? How many people do a quarterly town hall meeting? You know what a town hall is? I don't know. Time for you to hear it from your ivory tower. You got to know what's going on. And I operate out of complete transparency. And I get pissed off and I'll dig into people. I'm like, no. Tell me what the real issue is. I want to hear the real issue, right? It's more of a Q&A style of where you're having an opportunity for the entire team to kind of come together. It's not a groupthink session. It's an opportunity for you to hear their questions, right? And the sequence is you have your quarterly leadership team meeting, you have your annual leadership team meeting, and then you do that. Why do you think that is? So you can share the vision. You can share the new goals. It's important for everybody to understand and be in tune with that, right? It's that more of that all hands type deal, right? Next quarterly goals, allow them for opportunity of Q&A. Hear it from the bottom. Promise you, your business has a lot more problems than what you think it even does if you have people already. And you want to hear it from them. Quarterly, semi-annual one-on-ones. Who does one-on-ones? I know you guys just implemented it. Love it, love it. Cool. One-on-ones. As again, a one-on-one is concerned, we go back to the hierarchy. Who are you responsible for? Those are the only people you should be doing your one-on-ones with. It's their responsibility to do their one-on-ones with their people, et cetera, et cetera. Make sense? Everybody needs to be heard on at least a semi-annual basis. And a lot of that also needs to be done on an evaluation standpoint, an annual review, right? We need to make sure that we're having an opportunity to be able to evaluate and that they can evaluate you and your performance as a leader, okay? And that's very important that you do those one-on-ones. I would put somebody on the spot, but I don't even think they're in the room, of how important last week was for somebody that did their one-on-ones. Change the dynamic. Are you in the room? Share it real quick. Now, you don't have to get into details.
Oh, it was very impactful for everyone. It was, I made it a priority. They all knew it was a priority. We had a few things that came up, and the fact that I literally flew home before the meetings and then flew back out was, and the feedback from everyone was priceless.
And you had a schedule that you followed, kind of an itinerary of sorts, right? We share that. Yep. No, and you don't have to thank me. I'm just saying, like, the standpoint of there's also a cadence to that. Okay. There's a cadence to it. What's wrong? What's working? What's not working? What are your goals? What do you want to see? This isn't about you. It's about them. You make it about you, they won't be around very much longer. Okay?
Now, on to productivity enhancement. First, we need to incorporate healthy life and business practices. The calendar management process is super, super vital, as is the task management process, and you should be incorporating both of these principles into the things that you do in your life and business.
I'm a big Google Workspace Suite back office. I like Grasshopper and some other phone systems like it, okay? Some of that virtual IP stuff. And then I got another system called 90.io, which I'll show you in a minute, okay? But from the rest of this, CRM, use a system like Job Nimbus, right? If you're not using a CRM, you need to start using a CRM. I'd heavily recommend Job Nimbus. Customizable, it's got a lot of great features, well-funded, they're going to continue to develop, right? Okay, and integrate, or innovate. Estimating, SumoQuote. You guys just heard Ryan a minute ago. Great quoting system. And it all integrates. All of these things seemingly integrate, right? Canvassing, Spotio, Company Cam, Hailtrace, Hover, Sunlight. I'm just giving you some of the examples of the things that I really like and encourage people to use. You need to make sure you're utilizing technology. Okay? And I'm not going to go on one of those spills of what does the industry look like in 5 to 10 years, because I know there's some people that are really passionate about that. But if you at least don't integrate technology into your business, you're going to be left in the dust, because it's going to be really hard to keep up with the efficiencies of others, and especially the customer experience it involves. Okay? Lastly, this 90.io system, I want to just show you real quick. Okay? Good friends with Mark Abbott over at 90. Okay? So I know I'm going through this real quick, but has dashboards, right? Your personal dashboard. We talked about that data piece, right? That's all in here, right? Weekly, monthlies, quarterlies, annuals. I'm not telling you I created the technology, but I did get back in and get a very unique relationship in with the CEO to allow me to customize the software, okay? And more to come. So tasks, targets, right? Looking at it from that perspective. The green thumbs up is on track. There's also off track, complete. Got some 90 days there. We're looking at a cash goal of 500,000, accrual goals. Got tasks set there. You can see where those little red dots are on the side there. Got our short-term and long-term challenges set. Got to go into that meeting, right? Takes a second sometimes. There you go.
What software is this? Sorry.
90.io. Yep. I'll create an opportunity for you guys to get this if you want it in a minute. But look, It's got your timer on there, right? It's got your information on there. It's got everything in there. And this one, I put a pass-off conversation. This is a little smaller company, so I made a little dedicated time for pass-offs, right? Because they're having some issues there. Challenges time and takeaways, okay? And then you go in here and you look at the meeting notes. You have meeting notes that you take every week. And then you go in there and at the bottom, it's hard to see, but once you're done, you hit select and end. It'll actually send all your meeting notes and all the results of the entire meeting to your email afterwards, and it logs it in the system. Okay? I don't know what just happened. Oh, yeah, last thing I was going to show here is the different types of meetings. You can create different types of meetings. Going back to that why piece, right? The vision, values, brand. Look, it's right here. And everybody in your company can see it. Even people that you don't want to pay a license for, you can still have them as an observer in there. And all you do is you just share it. Like, look, they know exactly where we're going. The 1 year, the 3 year, the big vision. What's the big vision, right? Look how clear and detailed we were. I know it's already gone, but very detailed on what we're trying to create. Look at these TBHs, right? TBH. Got them all set up inside the system. One-on-ones. You log your one-on-ones in here. It also does your one-on-ones for you. So you send it to the person, as long as they're an actual license in the software, you can do one-on-ones. And last piece is that process, right? You actually high-level some of your steps in the process on the software as well. So when you bring people in, you say, hey, I want you to just evaluate the production piece or something like that, or see our overall high-level company processes, because it's important to understand the cross-communication between departments, right? To have something that's just like a template, right? It's all there. So this is a system that combines all of the 6 things that we talked about today, okay? I'm not telling you have to use it. What I'm telling you is there's something that's available to you and something that I have been heavily involved in creating with Mark, okay? So you can do your own 90, and it does look a little different. There's a little less feature to it and some other things, okay? But if you want to be able to get access to that, here in a minute, I'll put you guys a QR code up. Okay, and you can fill out the form, and I can get you set up to do the 90 setup, okay? Okay, so in closing, that's the system. That's the system, okay? So now again, I just hit on, if it's going to show up, today's focus, right, was fundamentals, vision. Got to have it. Even if you're just incorporating one piece of it, tomorrow it will make a difference in your business. You got to have it. The fundamentals will provide predictability for your people and your processes, and it will ensure rapid growth. It will ensure. Let's think about it as we wrap up here, okay? The thought process of starting where we started at the very beginning. Where are we going? Why do we exist? In the processes of the team chemistry and roles and responsibilities, all these types of things. Okay? All the things we climbed through today, the whole topic has been everybody wants rapid growth. Everybody wants the machine. Everybody wants to scale. This is the starting point. It's not necessarily everybody's starting point, that scale, but ask a company owner, and there's probably no one in the room here. I've had the privilege of working with someone who's been about $41 million. It looks a hell of a lot different at $41 million than it does at $10 million, even if you're doing some big numbers, okay? And they may not have it exactly like this, but there's got to be some form of this, or else that is just plainly a facade. There's nothing that will hold up at a big number, because you cannot out-people it. You have to process it. And people are the most important thing to you, and they should be, but your processes have to back up your people. Closing thoughts. This is my one tidbit of leadership, because I would love to do a keynote on leadership, because I haven't done one yet, and I have a lot of thoughts because there's a lot of people talking about leadership today. Don't know why in this particular industry, all of a sudden it's like leadership. Everybody has their own spin on it, okay? So broad topic, and one that's been more recently a focus of this industry, but I want to give you my 2 cents, okay? And this is a lot of reading, but here's what I'm going to tell you. People should be your purpose. And if they are not, you will not be as an effective leader as you could be if you actually had people at the center of everything you're doing. You need to provide opportunity, invest in personal and professional growth, build genuine connections, celebrate the wins of your people. That should be the why of you as a person, as a leader. I don't do it perfect every time, and I probably beat a dead horse more than one time with people because I want them to know how I feel. But at the end of the day, most people, can't say every person, but most people that I come in contact with and the people that I have the honor of leading know that I care about them. And if they don't, then I've failed. I care about them, and you should too. Love more, care more, empower more, with a commitment to operate within the best intentions of your people at all times. We're not perfect. Don't be afraid to admit your flaws. Be self-aware. There's power in being self-aware. And not just saying you're self-aware, but actually being self-aware and realizing that you are flawed. I am too. But when you have a mistake, own your mistake and tell them that you own your mistake, okay, when things arise. Watch the magnetic field of people, great people attracting to you and staying committed with you, your business, and your mission of creating more leaders if you do that. If it's just constantly about the people. And I know that that's, again, maybe not super profound because John Maxwell has wrote 100 and some odd books about leadership. And I'm certainly not here to tell you I'm John Maxwell, but I can boil it down to one thing. It's about people. And if you don't like people, then you probably aren't going to last very long as an entrepreneur, or you'll be a solopreneur for a long time. So learn to love people and learn to care about people and empower them. And empowering is one of the things that most of us struggle with because we're control freaks. I am too. But the less that you empower, the more that you're taking away their joy and their fulfillment, and you're not allowing yourself to see the vision that you want to see. So do that and be that. Be the people-centric individual, the people-centric leader. I love this quote from Patrick Lencioni. Building a cohesive leadership team is the first critical step that an organization must take if it is to have the best chance of success. Again, going back to people and process. People, they're the most important thing. Process, second most important thing. Got to have both. But people are absolutely the starting point, and as you build processes, you're just going to enable it to explode. That's it. So what's the key difference between a great and average company? Anybody want to take a hack at it? People. Systems. Kind of throwing you for a loop after I just went through all that people stuff. Great companies execute. Average companies just talk about what they might execute. So what you learned today, not from just me, okay, hopefully I was able to provide some value to you, but what you learned from everybody in this room, you must execute. Remember what I said from the beginning, knowledge without implementation is what? It's worthless. I know that was like an hour and a half ago. Do you remember that? It's worthless. Great companies execute. Average companies talk about what they might execute, so execute. Execution around the system that is proven, okay? Bad systems with execution can lead you down a bad path. But we're lining out the things that are going to be talked about today, things that work. So execute. Don't be afraid to execute. Someone talked yesterday in our fireside, which if y'all were a part of that, or fireside, I know it wasn't really fireside, but if you're part of that, special moment. And there were some people that shared some deep stuff that I thought was an incredible opportunity for us to kind of, continue to support one another and have each other's back. And someone said that their biggest issue is the fear of letting them execute to a degree. And what I can tell you is be comfortable being fearful about execution because it's never going to be perfect. But if you follow the system that works and you continuously try to have efficacy, it will work. I promise. There are tens of thousands of companies that do this same type of system, except this is very vertical specific. Very roofing, solar, construction specific, okay? So, if you'd like to set up that 90.io software, if you'd like to meet with me or the team one-on-one, or you'd like to get a copy of this deck, scan. There'll be a little form that you'll fill out, and make sure you fill out the entire form and submit it, because if you don't submit it, I won't know that you filled it out, okay? Got to make sure you hit that submit button. All right, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share this with you. And don't take it lightly, because I know that this is not sexy stuff. Deshaun and all the marketing folks, they got the flashy stuff. I got the not so flashy stuff, okay? So thank you for listening today. Can't wait to meet with you guys this afternoon, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.